In 1881, the Sharps Rifle Company reached the end of the road in Bridgeport, Connecticut. There was no dramatic explosion, no single battlefield failure, no scandal that made the name unusable. The machinery was sold. The remaining inventory was cleared. The business that had once supplied Union cavalry, frontier hunters, and some of the most demanding marksmen in America simply stopped being an operating manufacturer. And yet the name did not die. Sharps survived in stories told around buffalo camps, in Civil War memoirs, in the hands of collectors, in museum cases, and eventually in modern reproductions built far from the original factories. The rifle became a symbol of American long-range power, Western expansion, and 19th-century precision manufacturing. But the real story is not that America forgot the Sharps rifle. The real story is that the world which made the Sharps rifle indispensable disappeared faster than the company could adapt to it. This is not just the history of a famous gun. It is the history of a manufacturing logic. A single-shot, high-strength, precision-built rifle designed for a moment when range, power, and mechanical confidence mattered more than magazine capacity. For a brief period, that logic was nearly perfect. Then the military changed. The frontier changed. The buffalo market collapsed. Repeating rifles became good enough for most buyers. And the brand that had helped define an era found itself trapped inside the very excellence that made it famous. Every week on this channel, we follow the industrial stories behind legendary arms makers, the engineers, patents, factories, contracts, wars, and business decisions that created them, and the structural forces that eventually broke or preserved them. If that kind of history matters to you, subscribe and stay with us. The Sharps story begins before the buffalo rifle, before adobe walls, before the great hide hunts of the plains. It begins with Christian Sharps, a New Jersey-born mechanic whose most important education came not from a university, but from one of the most technically demanding industrial environments in the young United States. Christian Sharps was born in 1811 in Washington, New Jersey. The surviving record does not place him in a family of famous gunmakers. He did not inherit a major arms factory. His early importance came from skill, not capital. By the 1830s, he was working at Harper's Ferry Armory, one of the two great federal armories of the United States, alongside Springfield Armory in Massachusetts. Harper's Ferry was not merely a place where weapons were made. It was a laboratory for the American system of manufacturing. The central idea was simple to describe and difficult to execute. Parts should be made with enough precision and standardization that one component could replace another without extensive hand fitting. In the age before full industrial maturity, this was revolutionary. A firearm was no longer just a craftsman's object. It could become a system of measured, repeatable parts. For a young mechanic, that environment mattered. It taught him that the future of firearms would not belong only to the cleverest mechanism. It would belong to the mechanism that could be made, inspected, repaired, and repeated. The major military arm of the period was still the muzzle loader. A soldier had to load from the front of the barrel, manage loose powder and projectile, ram the charge into place, and then prepare the ignition system. Under calm conditions, a trained man could do this efficiently. Under rain, smoke, stress, cavalry pressure, or irregular terrain, the limits of the system became brutally clear. The rear of the barrel, the breech, was the problem and the opportunity. If the breech could be opened safely, loaded quickly, and closed strongly enough to contain firing pressure, the rifle would change. The shooter would no longer have to stand exposed to load. Loading could become faster. The weapon could be used from more positions. But solving that problem was not as simple as cutting a door into the back of a barrel. Black powder arms generated pressure, heat, fouling, and gas leakage. A weak breech could injure the shooter. A complicated breech could fail in dirt. A loose seal could waste energy and erode confidence. Many inventors worked on breech loading systems in the first half of the 19th century. The question was not whether breech loading was desirable. The question was whether it could be made strong, simple, and manufacturable enough to survive real use. Christian Sharps's answer was the falling block. In basic terms, A falling block action uses a solid block of metal that moves vertically inside the receiver. When the operating lever is moved, the block drops and exposes the chamber. A cartridge or charge can then be inserted at the rear of the barrel. When the lever is closed, the block rises back into position and locks the breech. The importance of the system was not theatrical, it was structural. A strong block of steel, moving in a controlled vertical path, gave the rifle a compact and robust way to contain pressure. It was not perfect by later metallic cartridge standards. Early Sharps arms using paper or linen cartridges still had to deal with gas leakage and fouling, but compared with many competing breech systems of the period, the falling block offered a convincing combination of strength, simplicity, and speed. Christian Sharps received a U.S. patent for his breech loading mechanism in 1848. That patent was more than a legal document. It was the foundation of a business moat. In an industry where the central mechanical problem was obvious to everyone, the ability to protect a practical solution mattered enormously. But a patent does not automatically create a company. Sharps had the mechanism. He did not have the full industrial base needed to produce rifles at scale. That required machines, skilled workers, capital, distribution, and credibility with buyers who had every reason to distrust unproven firearms. The early production story therefore moved through partnerships, especially with Robbins and Lawrence of Windsor, Vermont, a firm connected to the precision manufacturing culture of the Connecticut River Valley. That region mattered. The corridor running through parts of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont became one of the great centers of American arms production. It had water power, machine tool expertise, skilled mechanics, subcontracting networks, and proximity to military procurement culture. In that ecosystem, the Sharps rifle could become more than an inventor's prototype. It could become a product. Early Sharps rifles and carbines appeared in the late 1840s and early 1850s. Available sources place early commercial production at modest numbers compared with what would come later. The early market was uncertain. A breech-loading rifle was more expensive than many muzzle loaders. It required buyers to believe that mechanical speed and modern design justified the price. The first customers were not simply casual sportsmen. They were men and institutions with a specific problem. They needed a firearm that could be loaded faster, used from horseback or difficult positions, and trusted under frontier or militia conditions. This is where the Sharps rifle began to acquire something more valuable than sales. It acquired a reputation. In the 1850s, the rifle entered the violent politics of the American frontier. During the conflict known as Bleeding Kansas, rifles associated with Free State settlers became famous under the nickname Beecher's Bibles, connected to abolitionist Henry Ward Beecher and the shipment of arms to anti-slavery settlers. The phrase was political, provocative, and powerful. It attached the Sharps name to a national struggle before the Civil War had even begun. For the company, the Kansas Association was dangerous and valuable at the same time. It made Sharps rifles politically charged, but it also proved that they were considered serious tools in places where survival and power were not abstractions. By the mid-1850s, the Sharps Rifle Manufacturing Company had been organized in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford was not an accidental location. It was one of the major American manufacturing cities of the period, with deep ties to arms production, precision tooling, and industrial finance. The move placed Sharps within a stronger manufacturing world, one better suited to larger contracts and more disciplined output. Then came the Civil War. The war did not create the Sharps reputation from nothing, it magnified it. The United States Army needed cavalry arms, and breech-loading carbines became especially important for mounted troops. A cavalryman armed with a muzzle loader faced obvious limitations. Reloading on horseback was awkward and slow. A breech loader changed the relationship between the rider, the weapon, and the battlefield. Sharps carbines became one of the important breech-loading arms used by Union cavalry. They were not the only carbines of the war. The Civil War saw a wide range of breech-loading and repeating arms, including Spencer repeaters, Burnside carbines, Smith carbines, and others. But the Sharps had a combination of strength, familiarity, and military acceptance that gave it a substantial place in Union service. The military importance of the Sharps was not just rate of fire. It was reliability under pressure, adequate accuracy, and a mechanism that soldiers could understand. A weapon in wartime is not judged only by what it can do on a clean demonstration table. It is judged by what it can do after marching, rain, powder fouling, rough handling, and exhausted men. The Sharps also became associated with specialized marksmanship. Burden's United States sharpshooters, among the most famous marksman units of the Civil War, used Sharps rifles after early issues with other arms and procurement delays. Their role was not the romantic fantasy of lone shooters deciding wars by themselves. Their importance lay in skirmishing, harassment, and accurate fire at ranges where ordinary infantry fire was less effective. That mattered culturally. The Sharps rifle helped demonstrate that accuracy, range, and breech-loading speed could reshape how soldiers thought about the battlefield. It did not make older tactics disappear overnight, but it made the future visible. By the end of the Civil War, Sharps had a powerful reputation and a serious problem. War demand had made the company important. Peace made that demand vanish. After 1865, the United States had enormous stocks of military arms and a government deeply interested in economical solutions. The Army did not simply replace everything with new commercial rifles. It converted existing muzzle-loading Springfield rifle muskets into breech loaders using the trapdoor system associated with Erskine S. Allen at Springfield Armory. This made institutional sense. It used existing arms, existing government facilities, and a lower-cost conversion logic. For Sharps, it was a warning. The company had proven itself in war, but proof was not the same as permanent adoption. The federal government could respect a design and still choose a cheaper path. A private arms maker that survives on military contracts must understand this cold fact. The best mechanism does not always win. The mechanism that fits the procurement system often wins. The post-war Sharps company had to find another market. It found one on the Great Plains. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869, the expansion of hide markets, and the growth of commercial hunting opened a brutal and historically consequential demand for powerful long-range rifles. Professional buffalo hunters needed a gun that could kill large animals at significant distances, often from a fixed position, with enough accuracy and power to make the first shot count. They did not necessarily need rapid fire, they needed reach, authority, and consistency. The Sharps single-shot rifle was well suited to that world. The Model 1874 became the most famous expression of the Sharps legend, though Sharps rifles existed in many configurations and chamberings. Heavy barrels, large black powder cartridges, and precise sights made these rifles formidable tools in the hands of expert marksmen. The popular phrase "buffalo rifle" has come to describe a broader category of heavy plains rifles, but Sharps sits at the center of the image. Technically, the key point was simple. The falling block action could handle powerful cartridges in a strong single-shot platform. A single-shot rifle with a heavy barrel and good sights could be optimized for accuracy and power rather than compactness or rapid magazine fire. For the buffalo hunter, that was not a weakness. It was the business model. A hunter working a stand did not necessarily chase an animal after every shot. Contemporary accounts of the hide hunting era describe methods in which hunters fired from a distance, attempting to keep the herd from fully panicking and scattering. In that context, a slow but powerful and accurate rifle could be devastatingly efficient. The rifle did not create the destruction of the bison herds by itself. That collapse came from a convergence of commercial hide demand, railroad access, federal policy, military pressure on plains tribes, ecological vulnerability, and market incentives. But the heavy Sharps rifle became one of the tools through which that destruction became commercially practical. This is one of the darker truths of the Sharps story. Its engineering success was tied to a market that could not last morally, ecologically, or economically. The buffalo hide trade was not a stable industry in the ordinary sense. It was resource extraction at catastrophic speed. Once the southern and then northern herds were reduced to commercial exhaustion, the market for the classic heavy buffalo rifle contracted sharply. The rifle had been brilliantly suited to a world that was destroying its own foundation. That is the central tragedy of Sharps Arms. The company did not fail because the rifle had no purpose. It failed because its most profitable civilian purpose was temporary. At the same time, the broader firearms market was changing. Repeating rifles were becoming increasingly attractive to civilians. Winchester's lever-action rifles, especially the Model 1866, Model 1873, and later larger frame designs, offered something very different from a heavy Sharps: multiple shots before reloading, lighter handling, and a form of practical convenience that suited settlers, ranchers, travelers, and general-purpose users. The comparison must be made carefully. A Winchester lever action of the 1870s was not simply better than a Sharps. At long range with heavy cartridges, the Sharps could do things many repeaters could not. But most buyers do not purchase theoretical superiority. They purchase usefulness for their own lives. As the buffalo market declined and the frontier economy shifted, the heavy single-shot rifle became more specialized. The repeater became more broadly useful. A Sharps was an instrument of precision and power. A Winchester was an instrument of convenience and continuity. In the market that followed the buffalo range, convenience increasingly won. The company tried to respond. The Sharps Borchardt Model 1878, designed by Hugo Borchardt, was one of the most advanced late Sharps designs. It used a hammerless falling block action, cleaner in profile, and mechanically sophisticated. Borchardt himself is an important figure in firearms history, later associated with the Borchardt C93 pistol, a pioneering self-loading handgun that influenced the later Luger design line. That connection gives the final Sharps chapter a fascinating historical echo. The engineer linked to one of the company's last rifles would later help open the age of self-loading pistols. But sophistication did not save Sharps. The Borchardt rifle arrived into a market that was already moving away from the company's strongest identity. Military buyers were not prepared to anchor the firm with a major new contract. Civilian buyers had more choices. The heavy buffalo rifle market had collapsed. The company's manufacturing base had already been strained by relocation and contraction. The move from Hartford to Bridgeport in the 1870s was not the story of a company expanding in triumph. It was a sign of retrenchment. The firm that had once stood near the center of wartime and frontier demand was now trying to survive in a narrower market with fewer structural advantages. This is where brand and institution begin to separate. A brand can live in memory after the factory dies. An institution cannot. The institution is the payroll. The gauges, the proofing routines, the foremen, the fitters, the suppliers, the inspection habits, the shop discipline, the knowledge of which surface can be corrected and which error means a receiver must be rejected. The institution is not just the drawing. It is the ability to turn a drawing into thousands of functioning rifles with repeatable quality. When the original Sharps enterprise dissolved, that institutional knowledge dispersed. Some of it survived in the hands of workers. Some of it survived in the rifles. Some survived in patent records, advertisements, catalogs, military documents, and collector research. But the original manufacturing organism was gone. The name survived. The factory culture did not. That is why modern Sharps reproductions, however beautifully made, are not a continuation in the strict industrial sense. Companies such as Shiloh Rifle Manufacturing Company in Big Timber, Montana, and other makers of Sharps pattern rifles have helped preserve and revive the form. Their work can be excellent. But they did not inherit the original Bridgeport tooling as a continuous production line. They are part of a revival, not an unbroken corporate chain. That distinction matters because firearms history often confuses names with institutions. A trademark can be revived. A receiver marking can be imitated. A catalog style can be reproduced. But a factory culture once broken is harder to resurrect. It is made of people, routines, and accumulated judgment. Sharps became immortal only after the company died. Collectors helped make that happen. Civil War Sharps carbines, Berdan-associated rifles, documented sporting rifles, and Model 1874 Buffalo rifles became objects of study and desire. Museums preserved examples. Auction houses and specialist collectors developed standards around originality, condition, provenance, factory letters, inspector marks, sights, barrel configuration, and chambering. The rifle moved from tool to artifact. That transition changes an object's meaning. A Sharps rifle in 1874 was a working instrument. A Sharps rifle in a museum case is evidence. It tells us about machining, ammunition, military procurement, frontier violence, commercial hunting, and the industrial confidence of the 19th century. The steel carries more than mechanical function. It carries a record of a society willing to transform landscapes, animals, and peoples through technology and markets. This is why the Buffalo rifle legend is powerful and uneasy. It is not just a story of marksmanship, it is also a story of extraction. It is not just a story of American engineering, it is also a story of how engineering serves the demands placed upon it. The Sharps rifle was neither villain nor hero by itself. It was a tool built with unusual intelligence for a world that used tools with ruthless purpose. The most famous Sharps moment in popular memory is often tied to the Second Battle of Adobe Walls in 1874, where buffalo hunters fought against a large force of Comanche, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and allied warriors in the Texas Panhandle. Accounts of the battle, including the famous long shot attributed to Billy Dixon, have been retold for generations, though details vary and should be treated with historical caution. What matters for the Sharps story is not whether every later retelling is precise. What matters is that the rifle became associated with extreme range, frontier defense, and the confidence of men who believed their technology could hold distance itself. That image was powerful. It was also near the end of the company's best market. The same year, 1874, is associated with the great Sharps Buffalo rifle in the public imagination. It is also the year Christian Sharps died. The inventor did not live to see the full dissolution of the company that bore his name, and he had long since separated from its management, but the coincidence is difficult to ignore. The man, the mechanism, and the market all belonged to a 19th century world that was beginning to close. By the early 1880s, the original Sharps business could no longer stand. The Civil War procurement world was gone. The buffalo hide economy was collapsing. Repeating arms had captured the imagination and practical needs of many civilian buyers. Military doctrine was moving toward new standards and eventually toward bolt-action repeaters using smokeless powder cartridges. The heavy black powder single-shot rifle, once a symbol of modernity, was becoming a specialized relic. This is the harsh rhythm of industrial history. A company can be right for its moment and still fail in the next one. Sharps solved the problem of the strong breech-loading single shot. It did so early, convincingly, and with enough manufacturing seriousness to become a legend. But the next problem was different. The next problem was magazine capacity, lower-cost mass civilian appeal, government standardization, metallic cartridge evolution, smokeless powder, and a market no longer organized around shooting large animals at long distance from a stand. The answer to one age became the burden in another. There is a temptation to say that Sharps should have become Winchester or Remington or Springfield's commercial counterpart. But companies are not infinitely flexible. They are made of capital, tooling, engineering habits, management choices, dealer networks, and customer expectations. Sharps was known for a particular promise: strength, range, accuracy, and the authority of the single shot. To pivot away from that promise required more than a new model. It required a new institutional identity. The company did not make that leap. And so the legend detached from the business. Today, the Sharps name still has force because the original rifles remain understandable. You can look at a falling block action and see the logic. The movement is visible. The strength is legible. It is not hidden inside a complex self-loading cycle. A lever moves, a block drops, the chamber opens, the block rises, the breech locks. The design explains itself in steel. That clarity is part of its endurance. In an age of polymer frames, stamped parts, optical rails, and modular systems, the Sharps belongs to a different industrial language. It came from a time when the promise of a firearm was concentrated in the fit of a few large pieces of machined metal. Its drama was not speed. Its drama was certainty. One shot, strong lockup, long distance, heavy consequence. The historical footnote that widens the story is Hugo Borchardt. The designer of the Sharps Borchardt did not save the company, but his later work helped point firearms design towards self-loading mechanisms. In that sense, the last serious technical effort of a declining single-shot rifle maker was connected through one engineer's career to the coming century of semi-automatic arms. The old world and the new one touched for a moment inside the same biography. That is often how industrial transitions happen. They are not clean breaks. They are carried by people who move from one failing market into another emerging one. Sharps Arms left no continuous manufacturing dynasty comparable to Colt, Winchester, or Remington. It did not become a permanent government supplier. It did not evolve into a broad sporting arms empire. Its original factories did not remain sacred industrial ground. Its machinery did not carry the name forward in an unbroken line, but the rifle remained. It remained because it had done something real. It had given soldiers a faster breech-loading arm when the muzzle loader was reaching its limits. It had given marksmen a strong and accurate platform. It had given buffalo hunters a tool brutally suited to the economics of the hide trade. It had given American firearms history one of its clearest examples of a mechanism perfectly matched to a vanishing world. That is the final meaning of Sharps Arms. The company was not destroyed by a bad rifle. It was destroyed by a changed structure of demand. Its engineering was not too weak. In some ways, it was too specialized, too bound to the age that made it famous. When that age ended, reputation could not pay wages. Legend could not keep the proofroom open. Memory could not preserve a production line. Imagine the last phase of the original company not as a mythic ending, but as an ordinary industrial scene. A reduced shop floor, fewer orders, finished rifles waiting longer before shipment. Workers who know the feel of a correct action but no longer know whether the next month will require their hands. A name stamped into steel with more future as a symbol than as a business. Then the doors close. Decades later, an original Sharps Model 1874 rests on a bench at a range in Montana or behind glass at a museum in Wyoming, or in the careful hands of a collector reading the factory letter that confirms its configuration. The case colors may have faded. The stock may carry old handling marks. The barrel may show the long memory of black powder. But the block still drops. The mechanism still makes sense. The rifle still explains why men trusted it. The factory is gone. The market is gone. The herds that made the buffalo rifle commercially necessary are gone. But the object remains, heavy and precise, carrying the address of an industrial world that could not survive the passing of its own moment. In the next episode, we turn from the legend of the single shot to one of the most influential inventors in firearms history, a man whose designs helped arm hunters, soldiers, police departments, and entire nations across the 20th century. The story of John Moses Browning begins next.